Rivers is going to do is really going to do a real treat for us. And so she's from Marival, our wonderful place that we're going to be at soon, right? And she is going to kind of just get us going on a really healthy new year for 2022. And so I'm going to let her tell you all about herself a little bit, because I don't know Lindy, and she's a new person for me. And I just would love her to tell us all about yourself, Lindy, and then you'll take it from there. And let's all mute, if you would, so that that we can make sure none of our little grandchildren or whatever.
All those things. So welcome everyone. My name again is Lindy. I am the integrative health specialist at Marival, but my background is in social work. So I actually started off my career doing child welfare and public behavioral health. Then in the course of that, became a yoga and meditation teacher, and then a yoga therapist. And so actually started at Marival as a yoga and meditation teacher, and then have moved into the wellness department over the last year and a half. I am also currently training to be an organic intelligence practitioner, which is like a form of nervous system integration and a way of kind of navigating trauma a little bit more from a nervous system perspective. And then I'm also, because I'm one of those people who's really curious and like lots of things, I'm actually be training to become a sexuality educator as well too. So I have kind of a broad scan of a lot of different skills and things that I do, and feel really grateful to work at Marival, where somehow all these things kind of weave together in a way that's really beautiful and amazing. So today we're going to really kind of focus on how can we bring in a sense of wellness and wholeness for ourselves in 2022, and really making it in a way that's individual for each of you, because I really recognize that we're all on different journeys, and what works for one person may not work for somebody else. So this is going to be less of a really kind of specific do these things, and more of like, here's some principles to kind of think about as you really decide what's going to work for you as you move through this year. And I wanted to start us off by just acknowledging that we all survived 2021. Anyone else feel like 2021 was a much harder year than you anticipated? Hey, like, oh my gosh, right? So, and I think sometimes it's really important that we notice and acknowledge these places of just simple survival sometimes as well too. Because I think sometimes we don't feel like it's enough to just have survived something, that we need to have thrived something, or if we have survived, that we have been like an inspirational tagline somehow on it. So like, I survived, but I'm so grateful, right? Is what I hear people say all the time. And I want to just give us all permission to just be like, whew, I survived that. And that is plenty. There doesn't need to be any other kind of buts or ands added to it. So we're going to start with just kind of taking a moment of kind of landing and embodying this place and really acknowledging ourselves for that. So I want to just invite you to just maybe notice, like, is there any way you can become a little bit more comfortable in this moment in your seat that you're sitting in, and even throughout this time together, what's going to allow you to be as comfortable as possible. Maybe in that place of noticing your comfort, you just kind of feel your body being present. Maybe there's this awareness that you're breathing. And if it feels good to you, maybe even allow a hand to come to your heart. You may even allow the eyes to close. And I want you just to say to yourself, just say your name. And then I am so proud of you for making it through 2021. There have been some graceful and awkward moments, easy and hard moments, pleasurable and painful moments. I see them all and I honor them all. And then allow yourself to maybe continue to say anything that you need to say to yourself. And then as you feel ready, you can bring the hand down, let your eyes maybe begin to open again, and maybe even allow your eyes just to glance around the space that you're in, orienting yourself back into the space. And I'm going to just chat a little bit about this whole idea of what does it mean to be whole? Because it's a topic that I feel really passionate about, and I feel it's something that we sometimes struggle with a little bit, right? And so our essential nature is one of wholeness, which means there's nothing that can happen that can separate us from that truth. But even though that is the truth of who we are, we do sometimes forget it. It is really easy for that to get clouded just by everyday life or the things that kind of come up. But wholeness is inherent. And our definition of what it means to be whole is constantly changing, to take in new information, new things that kind of come our way. And because we are complicated and messy humans, we are paradoxical, which means we can simultaneously be okay and not okay. And that's okay. Right? And there's that kind of wisdom within that. And so wholeness doesn't mean that we are doing great or feeling great all the time. Wholeness means that we are allowing ourselves to settle into the truth of who we are in any given moment. And that truth is constantly changing. And that truth holds with it all the moments that are really easy and beautiful and sweet, as well as all the moments that are challenging, the moments that maybe feel like they broke us in some way. And that even when we're going through challenging moments that feel like they add in an element of brokenness, that is still part of what it means to be whole, is to honor and acknowledge all of those moments and not to push any of them away. And who we are as a human being includes having a body, having breath and energy, having emotions, having thoughts, having that deep, wise, intuitive self. And all these parts of ourselves work together and are constantly informing the rest of us as well too. And there are some days that parts of us need more attention than others, or have more to say or more to offer us. So to help us kind of tune in a little bit more, I'm actually going to do a meditation called a wholeness meditation, that I've been teaching at Marival for a couple of years now, kind of bringing us through that, but also kind of bringing in a little bit of checking in and asking different parts of yourself questions and giving yourself some time to listen to what arises. And at the end, I'll give you a little bit of time to maybe journal anything that maybe you want to from what just kind of came up for you in that way, just so that you could maybe remember it. So once again, I'm going to invite you to get as comfortable as possible in a place that you can kind of sit and take this in. If it feels comfortable and safe for you to close your eyes, I invite you to do that. But honoring what's the right thing for you in this moment to help you feel as safe and secure as possible. So again, maybe this moment of just feeling your body as being present. Begin to just notice how it feels to live in your body in this moment. And you're noticing without judgment. So you're letting yourself simply be with whatever's here. So allowing in this awareness of any sensations that are in the body. Noticing maybe what the energy feels like in the body. If you're feeling energized or tired. If there's places in the body that feel comfortable and at ease. if there's any places of tension. And as you're in this place of being tuned into the body, take a moment and just ask your body, what does it need right now? And if there's any way that you can respond to that need, allowing yourself to do so, maybe making a note for something you can do later. And then also asking your body, is it anything that it wants you to know? And then allowing your awareness to begin to shift to the breath. And just noticing yourself breathing right now. Noticing the ebb and the flow of your natural breath. Notice if your breath feels fast or slow, if it feels easy and smooth or tight and jagged. And we're just simply noticing. And sometimes in that place of noticing, we begin to become aware that the breath begins to change without any effort from us at all. Perhaps begin to notice if there's a difference in the length of your inhale and exhale. Noticing if one is longer than the other or if they are of equal length. And perhaps begin to notice if there's any place that your breath is wanting to begin to shift or change really easily on its own, in a way that makes breathing really pleasurable. And begin to ask the breath, does it need anything from you? Does your breath want you to know anything? And releasing this breath awareness and allowing your awareness to begin to shift to your heart. And here beginning to tune into your emotions, to your feelings, and begin to notice what emotions are present right now. Knowing that multiple emotions can be present simultaneously, and even emotions that might feel contradictory to each other. And see if you can identify at least 3 emotions that are present or have been present today. Notice if there's a particular emotion that you would like to maybe expand a little bit more, lean into, or feel a little bit more deeply. And begin to allow yourself to maybe lean in that direction. Maybe creating more space to let that emotion come in a little bit more. And there may be images or sensations that arise as you invite that emotion in. Perhaps begin to notice if that emotion lives any particular place in your body. Or if it's changing the way that you're breathing. Begin to notice and ask the question, do your emotions need anything from you? Is there anything that they want you to know? And then allowing your awareness to begin to shift to the mind, becoming aware of the thoughts that you're thinking. And thoughts are constantly coming and going through the mind. Beginning to imagine here that your thoughts are like clouds and they're moving through your sky mind. And so you begin to observe and watch as a thought arises. You see it float through the sky mind and then dissipate off into the horizon. And then you observe another thought cloud as it arises. And just stay with this for a few moments, simply observing your thoughts without attachment or moving into storyline. Notice if there's any emotional tone to any of your thoughts. And gently letting that go, asking the mind if it needs anything from you today. Or if your mind wants you to know anything. And then allowing that to release and beginning to tune into this place of deep inner wisdom, inner knowing, our intuition. Sometimes it can be helpful to maybe have a hand on the belly as a way of tuning into that deep part of ourselves. And as you drop into this deep, wise part of yourself, it's beginning to allow yourself to stay open to your own innate wisdom. And you're going to ask yourself a couple of different questions as you listen to and honor whatever wisdom arises in the moment. And so the first question is, what do I need to know most right now? The next question is, what is the best way to support myself as I move through 2022? And then the final question will be a question of your own. Is there something that you've been sitting with or wanting some guidance or clarity about? Can you give yourself permission in this moment to ask that question and to honor whatever answers arise from within? And slowly beginning to ease out of that as you feel ready, allowing the eyes to open and bringing with you the fullness of who you are, this body, breath, emotion, mind, wisdom. And I'm just going to give you a couple of moments here that if you would like to jot down any messages that you got from any parts of yourself that you really want to remember. And while you're doing that, I'm going to, in the chat, put in a link to this meditation. I actually have a recording of it through Insight Timer. So if it's something that you really enjoyed and you'd want to do again, you can easily do that. Insight Timer is a free app. And I'm going to begin to just chat about kind of 3 guiding principles or concepts to really support you in self-care, wellness, and wholeness in 2022. So we'll kind of start where we kind of left off, which is this place of trusting our own inner wisdom. And I feel like this is something that many of us kind of are a little bit challenged by. And our inner wisdom really is this place of our intuition. And it's based on a knowing that sometimes is outside of our conscious reasoning. So it's often linked to our subconscious. And when we do link to it, we then help make our subconscious more conscious, but without overthinking it, which is always the challenging part. And our inner wisdom always has our highest good in mind and is constantly working on our behalf. And it's very different than our inner critic. And hopefully when you did that meditation, you had that sense of what your inner wise beingness voice sounds like, right? So our inner wisdom voice is generally kind of kind and supportive. It gives clear messages around our own safety and health. It's oftentimes connected to that gut feeling or that kind of impulse or instinct in a particular way. It can show up sometimes as a single word, push to follow up on something, an impulse to move in a particular direction, a curiosity to explore something. It can also show up as sensation in your body. I have really found that when I'm asked to do something, tuning into my body is the best way to kind of know whether or not that's a yes or no for me. So for me, when it's a yes, I'll notice like my whole body feels alive and it's almost like tingling with sensation. And it almost feels like I'm almost like going to jump out of my skin. And that when it's a no, I suddenly find myself really, really tired and just completely exhausted, or maybe even this place of like feeling like so overwhelmed that I want to throw up. And so I really have noticed that these are what show up for me in terms of my own inner yes and inner no. And I have gotten much better at when those come up to really honor them. And I recognize this can be really tricky because sometimes then other voices begin to come in, right? And sometimes they're more the voices of our inner critic. So if there's kind of a deep no, sometimes the inner critic voice will be like, but what if they don't ask you again? What happens if you say no? Do you really want to let people down? Right. And so it becomes really important that we give ourselves permission to really trust that deep instinct in ourselves and not continue to override that, because overriding our inner wisdom is part of what really creates a lot more stress in the body and this sense of feeling that even more overwhelmed as we move through our lives. Right. And so our inner wisdom is part of us that really kind of knows, like, when is it right to say yes? When is it right to say no? How do we really listen to and honor maybe our boundaries that we need to make for ourselves, right? Some other ways that this could show up for you is to maybe, when you're feeling really stuck in a moment, to just simply ask yourself the question, what is the next right thing? So it's not 5 steps from now or next month, but just the next right thing. And that kind of breaks it down so that we have things in bite-sized pieces that we can really take in a little bit more and recognize from that. Because I think part of what happens for many of us, we're like, yeah, but if I do this, and what about this? And what about this? And it's like, no, just this moment. I only need to be aware of this moment. And to trust that if I do the next right thing in this moment, then I'll ask the question about the next moment. And I don't need to think 5 steps ahead, but just the next one. It can also be when you feel overwhelmed to actually give yourself permission to take a break. There's a lot of research coming out around the nervous system, and that when we're overwhelmed, the best thing we can do is pause and to actually do something really mindless. Because at that moment, our brain is saying to us, we can't take in anything more. And what I see some people do is they get overwhelmed, and sometimes they do that, but sometimes they try to override it and just keep going, right? So when we're overwhelmed, it really is our entire body and nervous system saying we need a break. And so we just want to listen to that and honor that as well. It can also look like these moments of like you have like a random impulse to do something. And it could be as simple in the middle of your day of like, oh, I just want to stand up and stretch or get a glass of water, or here's the type of food that sounds really good to me, or I'm curious about this. And you simply allow yourself to just notice that impulse and maybe follow it. And it doesn't have to be a long impulse following, but it's following in the moment. Because what I have really found in the work I've done with nervous system work is that the more that we listen to and follow those impulses within ourselves, they often are what's leading us back to that place of experiencing ourselves as whole. And a part of that too, of really honoring our own self in that moment, those deep places of inner listening. So even if we aren't in the moment pausing to ask the body what it needs, sometimes when we have an impulse, it's the body saying, I need this from you. When we follow it, the body goes, oh, thank you. I appreciate that. So inner wisdom, first one, and trusting it. So the second principle is ease. And I feel like ease has an interesting relationship too in our world, right? We sometimes actually say when people do things in an easy way that it's somehow wrong, right? Oh, he just took the easy way out, right? And we really sometimes in this society have really kind of looked at like it's been really hard, that there's more value to it, right? And I'm all about, instead of working hard, I keep working I keep trying to work softer. and looking at what does that look like for me, right? But when we allow ease into our life, what we're really doing is that we are willing to see the world in a particular way. And we're willing to recognize that sometimes ease is the way that gives us more energy to navigate the world that's really, really hard right now. And that it's really okay to find the pathways that allow for more ease in. Because when things are easy, they're more pleasurable and joyful, right? Ease allows for a lot more flexibility. It allows us to kind of change, to meet ourselves wherever we're at in a particular moment. Ease can sometimes mean that we let go of those shoulds that we sometimes make choices around. And especially at the start of a new year, we sometimes start the new year with these whole list of shoulds. I should drink more water. I should eat this way. I should move my body in this particular way, right? And some of those may be real and true, but it's how can you even address those from a place of what would be an easy way to do that? And are we doing it from a perspective that feels kind of good to us in some ways? So it's like, yeah, I want to change my diet because actually it feels better in my body. And here's the easy way that I change my diet. Maybe I add something in that I wasn't eating before that's really healthy. And we change that versus only pulling things away. Because oftentimes when we start to change things, we oftentimes are removing things that we see as being the bad habits. And what would it look like for us to allow ease in changing things and allowing there to be small incremental changes that happen that feel easy, that we can weave into our life in a way that feels really seamless to us. And ease can also be noticing what's already working. And maybe how do you expand on that? One of the things I notice working with people is that they dismiss the things they're already doing because they're already doing them, instead of going like, yeah, you know what, I've already have a meditation practice that I've been doing for 5 minutes a day. Maybe it would feel good to do it for 10, or maybe try a different meditation practice or add more time in because I already know that it's really enjoyable and I like it. Or I'm already moving my body in a particular way. What else might feel good to me, right? So it's kind of noticing we're already doing, and either A, just recognizing that and recognizing what's already working. Maybe it's adding more to it or finding the ease within that. It's also when, and I think especially when you come to a place like Marival, or you go to anything, like you get a whole list of all sorts of great, amazing things that you can do for your life. And it's sometimes looking at that list and choosing just one thing, like one thing that sounds the best to you to try, or the most interesting or intriguing, that even like when you think about it, there's this little spark of aliveness in you in the idea of doing it, right? That's what it means to kind of move in the direction of ease, move in a way that feels really good, and to trust that. And so ease can look like making sure we're drinking enough water, right? It could mean going for a short walk if we've been sitting for a long time, stepping away from our desk to stretch, journaling, having a meditation practice. Maybe it's you really notice it's exhausting to clean your house, so you decide to hire a house cleaner, or you're just tired of cooking for yourself, so you do one of those kind of meal box plans, right? So it's giving yourself permission to maybe also notice too, like, what are the things in your life you don't really enjoy, and what could you maybe get support in so that you don't have to do those things, so that you have more space for ease in your life and that you allow yourself not to work quite so hard, right? And so as you can kind of maybe even see, trusting your inner wisdom and ease go hand in hand. Because when you begin to really trust yourself, you begin to notice what is really easy for me. Where can I invite more ease into my life? And can I really trust that as well? And then the last principle is pleasure. And this is one that I feel really, really passionate about, right? We have such a complicated relationship with pleasure as well. And in fact, probably if you think about your own life, maybe the last time you used the word pleasure, you might have put the word guilty in front of it, right? We like to say things are our guilty pleasures. This book series I'm reading, this TV show, this food I'm eating. And I want you just to think about that for a moment. Because when we put guilty in front of pleasure, what we're really saying is that there are some things in life that we are allowed to enjoy, and other things on some level we should feel bad about enjoying. So I want to give you permission to let go of the guilty and to keep the pleasure, and to know that you have permission to like what you like and to take pleasure out of the things that you get pleasure from without any kind of judgment or value added to it, right? Pleasure is good for us. In fact, there is a lot of research coming out that the more that we attune our nervous system in the direction of pleasure, the more regulated our nervous system becomes, right? And that pleasure is actually fuel. and it energizes us. And this is also different than what many of us have been taught. Many of us have been taught, oh, I'm going to work really, really hard, and then I'm going to earn my pleasure. And then I'm allowed to do something that's enjoyable. And I'm a big advocate for flipping that entire script and to start with pleasure and to use then pleasure as a way that fuels you throughout the rest of your day, right? Pleasure is generally derived through the senses. So what are we seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, right? Which means at any given moment, we can pause and tune into pleasure. Even in this moment, if I were to ask you to kind of glance around the space that you're in and to notice where your eyes land, you might notice that your eyes land on something that for whatever reason feels good to you, even on the subtlest level, right? So this means that we can do this all the time, and we can do it in a conscious way where we maybe actively look at something that feels pleasurable, or we smell something that's really good to us, or we really allow ourselves to take pleasure in the food that we're eating or the music that we're listening to, and we allow that to make us feel alive. And when we start our day with bringing some pleasure into it, whatever that looks like for you, it gives us more energy as we move through the day, right? And if we blend this in with the ease, you can kind of see like all these pieces blend together, right? Hopefully, right? What is an easy way for you to experience pleasure? How does even including pleasure in allow things to become more easy? There's this connection back to that inner wisdom as well, too. So these three really work together to allow you to create a plan for yourself on how to kind of create some more wellness for yourself. And looking at even in those things of like, what do I want to do? Is what feels really good to me? And how do I expand upon that? Right? So some of these can be really noticing small moments of enjoying your coffee, moving your body in a way that feels good, journaling, eating slowly and enjoying your food, listening to birds singing, dancing along to your favorite song, wearing your favorite essential oil or perfume, video chatting or in-person chatting with a friend, right? Like, what are the things that feel really good to us? And this is so individual as well. I'm going to share really quickly something that I saw on Instagram that I thought was like such a good example of how different it is for each of us and how we each need to follow our own path. So Reese Witherspoon recently kind of posted that she was kind of bringing in some new habits that for her kind of felt really good or interesting as she kind of was moving into kind of 2022. And she goes, okay, so I'm going to start my day with a big glass of water. I'm going to get 10 minutes of outdoor light. I'm going to spend 30 to 60 minutes reading without distraction. And I'm going to be in bed by 10% to get 8 hours of rest. Right? In response, the barefoot Contessa said, good for you, Reese. Here's what I'm going to do. My formula is a little different. I'm going to drink more large Cosmos. I'm going to stay up late watching addictive streaming series. I'm going to stay in the bed in the morning playing Sudoku. And I'm going to spend more time safely with the people that I love. In a pandemic, I do what I can, right? And both of these are great lists, and they really reflect the individual, right? And I really love that because it means that each of us gets to create the list that's right for us. And both of these really do reflect, I think, these women and their personalities and what they each would find really pleasurable and maybe kind of easy and enjoyable for them, trusting their own inner wisdom. So I kind of share that so that you really give yourself permission to know, like, maybe the best thing for you is deep bonbons in bed. I don't know. like what is joyful and fun for you? And what do you want to bring in? Because maybe indulging in that pleasure is what really allows your nervous system to feel really good and does bring in more wholeness and wellness for you. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to share today. And I'm going to leave a little bit of space and time if anyone has any questions or comments. I know there was a request for chair yoga, and what I'm going to do is just kind of add a PDF file into our chat as well, for whoever kind of wanted that. I'm not going to kind of give some of that, but stuff. And you can, if you want, you can unmute yourself in chat, or you can type it into the chat if you have any questions.
I would like to say thank you. That was really lovely. And it's just nice to sit and be still and just follow your words. Because I think probably all of us are thinking, oh, this is just a nice place to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and unless we take time to do it, it's typically we don't go there. And thank you for sharing the Insight Timer link, because I actually use that a lot.
Oh, great.
Do you teach yoga on Insight Timer? Do you have yoga classes on
I
there?
don't on Insight Timer. I was doing some stuff, and I have about 5 meditations on there.
Okay.
But I don't at
Well,
this.
you have a new follower, so
Awesome. Yay.
I'll be following.
Great. Yeah, I'm actually taking a little hiatus and teaching yoga right now, but I'm sure just in part mostly because I'm in school, but at some point I'm gonna come back to it. But I'm trying to follow my own advice.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. That's
too.
not always easy, is it? Following your own advice. Yeah.
Will you
Wendy?
be in Maryville in May?
Yes. Yeah, I teach a lecture on brain health. I teach another one called The Beauty of Imperfection, where you get to break a bowl and then put it back together, kind of kintsugi style, which is really amazing.
Cool.
And I'll highly recommend that. It's a really cool
Okay.
thing to do.
Fun.
And because I am kind of trained to become a sexuality educator, I actually teach a class on mindfulness and pleasure there, kind of talking more about sex for women, and a pelvic floor wisdom class as well too. And my schedule is kind of constantly changing, but those are kind of the 4 that I do pretty regularly. And there may be other things that maybe are popping up during the time you guys are there.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wendy, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay, my name's Jacqueline Meehan. I just can't figure out my picture up there.
Okay.
But I'm a social worker in Tucson, and
great.
I needed to hear everything you had to say. And of course I'll use a lot of it for work too.
Great. Yeah.
But for personal health and for work. I have a question. My body can only do restorative yoga now. I have too much like pain and dizziness.
Mm-hmm.
So the restorative works, but I haven't found any good restorative classes in Tucson. I used to go to a great one, and she's not doing it. And I don't know if you know any.
That's funny you say that.